All right, we're going to wrap up most of the prerequisite knowledge to help us with Algebra 2, and we're going to wrap it up by understanding what is going on with the number line. And so I have a couple of examples that will help us understand how we can work with the number line and hopefully give us a better understanding of number sense. So the first question is very, very straightforward. We have a group of numbers that exist, and we're simply going to plot them. Where do they exist on a following number line? So remember, we have 0 right in the middle. Now the way number lines work, all of the positive numbers are to the right of 0. All of the negative numbers are to the left of 0. And so we have 0 right in the middle, and we begin with positive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going that way, and then 0 in the middle, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, things going that way. And so what we're going to do is plot some numbers. The first number I want to plot, because it is the easiest to plot, is this number right here. I'm gonna plot that number first. That is negative 7. Now where does negative 7 exist on a number line? Well, if 0 is in the middle and my negative numbers are to the left, and this is negative 7, of course, this is to the left 7 spaces. So we have 0 in the middle, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, negative 7 is right there. And so we plot negative 7 on the number line, and we label it as negative 7. That's basically how the number line works. So now, on to the other numbers. This first number is 1/5. And now, if you are still uncertain about the concept of fractions, you can do some review, and you can find out that way. Or you can understand that 1/5 is 1 out of 5, and so that means it's less than 1. Okay, so it's less than 1. If we take the distance between 0 and 1 and cut it into 5 pieces, 1/5 is going to be awfully close to the 0. It's only one of those 5 pieces we have cut. So you can think of it that way. Another way, you can use your calculator if you need help. Now the way we read fractions, 1/5, we can also read it as 1/5, and we can also read it as 1 divided by 5. Feel free to use your calculator. So you have 1 divided by 5, and that gives you 0.2, okay, 0.2. And if you know anything about graphing decimals, you have 0 and then 0.2. 0.2 is less than 1, so 0 and 0.2. Probably somewhere right around here as an estimated spot for the fraction 1/5. 1/5. And so that's where that number goes. Now the next number, we have negative 5/2. Now if you know about improper fractions, which is this is one of them, you know that they are also mixed numbers. This mixed number is negative 2 and 1/2. Okay, so if you know this is negative 2 and 1/2, you can picture it moving from 0, negative 1, negative 2, and 1/2. Or you can still use your calculator. You can have negative 5 divided by 2, and that gives you negative 2.5. So again, from 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 2.5. And that is where negative 5/2 is. So we already graphed negative 7. Well, what about the square root of 18? So there's 2 ways you can do this. You can do this with a calculator. You can do it without a calculator. If you understand square roots, you know what they ask. They ask a question, what times itself gives you this number? Well, 1 times 1 equals 1. 2 times 2 equals 4. 3 times 3 equals 9. 4 times 4 equals 16. And 5 times 5 equals 25. And so we know that the square root of 16 is equal to 4, and the square root of 25 is equal to 5. So the square root of 18 must be somewhere between 4 and 5. Okay, so you can figure it out that way, knowing that the square root of 18 is somewhere between 4 and 5. Or you can still use a calculator. Just take the square root of 18. Now, in a calculator, the way you take the square root of 18 is this way. You have 18, and then hit your square root button. Then, of course, you see it's 4.24 or whatever it comes out to be. So you know it's going to be 4.24 in this case. So where in the world is 4.24? From 0, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 0.24. Not quite halfway, right? So it's right there, closer to the 4. And that is where the square root of 18 is. And then the last number in the number line, 62 over 5. Okay, so that's going to be a little bit more than 12, excuse me, a little bit more than 12. And so how would we figure that out? Again, you can use your calculator. This is 62 divided by 5. So 62 divided by 5 happens to be 12.4. And so we're going to plot that on the number line. Starting at 0, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Here's 13, but we're dealing with 12.4. And 12.4 is right around the middle. And there is 62 over 5. And that's how we plot numbers on the number line. You just have to know where those numbers exist. So the second question about working with number lines is working with inequalities. So when we work with inequalities, there's a few things that we can do to help us. This is reading out loud. If we look at this inequality, we're reading it x is less than negative 3. Now there are a few things I want to tell you to help you, because some people will still read is less than negative 3 and still not know what it means. Now you can look at it in terms of being bigger than or being smaller than. So if you have this symbol, you can read it as is less than negative 3, or you can see that this symbol is almost like an alligator, right? So this alligator, this alligator is eating this negative 3. Now alligators always eat the bigger stuff. So if the alligator is eating negative 3, that means the x is smaller than the negative 3. So you can also think of it in terms of is smaller than. Okay, so the x is smaller than negative 3. Now there is one word I want to substitute in there to help you understand what the graph of this looks like. I want to insert the word everything. So I would say x is everything, or every number smaller than negative 3. Okay, so that's a way to think about it. X is everything smaller than negative 3. Now remember, we plotted on the number line above, like single points here, single points there, single points there. But how would we plot something that's everything smaller than negative 3? Well, first let's find negative 3. Here's 0, here's negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Negative 3 is right there. So how would we show everything smaller than negative 3? Well, the first thing we do is put a circle around the 3. So we know, well, we're dealing with negative 3. Now, to show everything smaller than negative 3, it's not just negative 4, negative 5, negative 6, it's everything. What about negative 3.00001? What about negative 3.00002? What about negative 3.00003? And everything, so it's every single number that exists that is smaller than negative 3. And the way we show that is by an arrow. And so we make an arrow to display that it keeps on going in the smaller direction. So this is showing that x is everything that is less than negative 3, or x is less than negative 3. Now we look at the next one. X is greater than or equal to 4. And of course, that's how we read it. So x is greater than, here's the big part, or equal to. That line underneath means it's also could be equal to 4. And so we're going to have to show that. Okay, so x is bigger than or equal to positive 4. So we look for positive 4. Here's 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're going to put a circle around 4. So here's our 4. Now what's going to happen? X is greater than or equal to. Since it could also equal 4, it could also equal 4, we can plot it just like we did these. It could also equal 4, so we put a solid dot because it could also equal 4. But it is also everything greater than 4, like 4.0001, 4.0002, 4.0003, and so on and so forth. It's every single number that's bigger than 4. and we show that with an arrow. And so understanding that concept for graphing inequalities is very helpful as well. And this is how we work with the number line. This is the basics of the number line, and then we'll deal more with this later on in Algebra 2. So that's how we work with the number line.